In this recording, I'm going to be working through a lab from flakbox.com. It's not from the free lab guide. It's actually from the Cisco CCNA Gold Bootcamp that they offer. It's $49. I highly recommend it. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the IGP Fundamentals Troubleshooting Lab exercise. And it says in this lab you'll troubleshoot the RIP version 2 and EIGRP routing protocols. What I'm going to do is I'm going to only focus on RIP version 2 troubleshooting in this video, and I'll make a second video for this lab for the EIGRP routing protocols. So let's go ahead and scroll down and get started. It says RIP version 2 has been configured on the network, but the routers are not learning remote routes. Your task is to troubleshoot the configuration and ensure that all routers have routes to every 10.0.0 every 10 network. There is a configuration error on each router. You will need to find and fix all errors before the network will work properly. All right, so let's get started with router 1. We're going to open this up a bit and we'll pull up the command line. And let's start by looking at the interfaces to make sure they're functioning properly. Show IP interface brief, because actually we can see one of them isn't. So we have fast Ethernet 00 is configured with the 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0. Over here 10.0.0.1. That looks right. It's up. We have 01 should be configured with 10.0.1.1, 10.0.1.1. It's up. That looks good. We have fast Ethernet 10, 10.0.2.1, so 10.0.2.1, that looks right. And then we have fast Ethernet 11, which is configured with 10.0.3.1, 10.0.3.1. So this is the network and this is the interface, the IP address of the interface. We have a loopback set, and we have, let's pull this open a little bit. So everything has been administratively set as up. We do see on fast Ethernet 1.1 that there's a problem, and it shows here that it's down, but that's probably a problem with router 5 because these are all up. So I think the interfaces are okay. Let's go ahead and make sure RIP is running since we're working on RIP version 2. So let's do the show IP protocols command, and I'm just hitting the tab to complete, and then we see EIGRP. Let's hit the space bar. Okay, we do have RIP on this device. It's doing version 2, which looks good. Routing for networks. There's a problem there. So the network that it is routing for is the 100.0.0.0 for any of those networks, but we don't have that. We're working with the 10 networks. So let's go ahead and fix that. So let's get to global configuration mode with CompT, and we're going to go to interface. Actually, I need to go back to, we need to change in RIP. So we need to go router RIP because we want to work on the RIP protocol, and we want to issue the no network. And the incorrect network was 100, so 100.0.0.0. So let's take that away, and then let's add the correct network of network 10.0.0.0. And then I'll do show IP protocols, and we'll hit the space bar. So RIP is there, and we fixed the problem with the networks that it's working on. So that looks good. No passive interfaces. All right, everything looks okay on router 1 for now. Let's go to router 2. Pull that up. Let's do a show IP interface brief so we can just make sure that the interfaces are set up correctly. And for router 2, fast Ethernet 00 should be 10.0.0.2. Fast Ethernet 00 is 10.0.0.2. Yes, that's up. And then fast Ethernet 01 should be 10.1.0.2. So 10.1.0.2, that's correct. It's got its loopback address set. So after everything looks there good with the interfaces, let's do the show IP protocols command, we can make sure that RIP is actually configured here. So we have EIGRP, and that's all we have. RIP isn't even configured on this device. So let's get into global configuration mode, and we want to issue the command. We're going to work with RIP, and we want to use version 2, and we want to assign a network that it's going to be looking for as 10.0.0.0, any 10 networks, and we want no auto summary. Now let's do a do show IP protocols, and let's see if RIP is there now. Yep, there it is. So RIP is at least enabled. It's version 2. We've got the interfaces. It's the correct network. I don't see any passive interfaces. So I think that's all we need to worry about with router 2. Let's move to router 3. Start with our interfaces to make sure they're functioning. Show IP interface brief. And I'm going to open this up a little bit. And we have on router 3, fast Ethernet 00 should be 10.1.1.2. 00 is 10.1.1. It's configured as 10.1.1.1. That should be .2. So let's fix this interface. And we're going to go into global configuration mode. And we're going to type interface fast Ethernet. I'm just tabbing completed to complete. And we're going to work on 00. And we're going to do a no, because we need to remove the incorrect address. No IP address of 10.1.1.1 with a subnet of 255.255.255.0. So that should be gone. And now let's issue the IP address, the correct IP address of, which should be fast Ethernet 0 should be 10.1.1.2. So 10.1.1.2. with a 255.255.255.0 mask. And let's do show IP interface brief. And now fast Ethernet 00 should be 10.1.1.2. And it is 10.1.1.2. We fixed that. Fast Ethernet 01 is configured as 10.1.0.2. And that's incorrect. It should be .1. So let's drop down and go into interface fast Ethernet 01. And let's do the no IP address, and we'll remove this incorrect address of 10.1.0.2 and 255.255.255.0. That would have been the subnet mask. And now let's issue the correct address. IP address, and we want for router 3 on interface 01, we need 10.1.0.1. 10.1.0.1 with a 255.255.255.0 subnet mask. Now let's do show IP interface brief, and let's take a look at them. 00 should be 10.1.1.2. And it is 10.1.1.2, and 01 should be 10.1.0.1 and 10.1.0.1. That's correct. They're both up and as a loopback. So next thing we're going to do is let's see if RIP is configured for this. So we'll do show IP protocols, and we have EIGRP, and we have RIP. So RIP is enabled. It's working with version 2. Here are interfaces. The networks that it's working on are the 10 networks. That's good. It's got a gateway set up. So that all looks okay. 10.1.0.2, 10.1.0.2. So it's showing this as its gateway. That all looks okay. So let's move on to router 4. And we're going to start with show IP interface brief so we can look at the interfaces. So we have router 4 has 00, should be 10.1.1.1, and it is, and it's up. 01 should be 10.1.3.1, 0, or I mean that's 10, so that's this one, 10.1.3.1. Yes, that's up. 10.1.2.1, which is here, this interface, should be for Fast Ethernet 0.1, which it is, and it's up. And then for this last one, Fast Ethernet 1.1, it has configured as 203.0.113.1, 203.0.113. So this is just the network, and then this is the interface .1. So that looks good, and it's got its loop back. So I think the interfaces are all okay. And let's do a show IP protocols to see if RIP is on here, and it does look like it. Routing protocol is RIP. Screw that up. Version 2, that looks good. For the 10 networks, that looks good. Now, router 4 looks like all of its interfaces are passive, which means it's not going to, although you can route through it to these different networks, it's not going to share any routing information if it's a passive interface. So we have to change that. So this is probably set by default. And let's go into, to change that, we need to get in global configuration mode. So Comp T, we're going to be working with RIP. So router RIP. The command to make them, all of the interfaces, passive, which means, again, you can route, but you won't share any routing information, is passive interface default. That by default puts it, so let's just issue the no command, and then we'll do the passive interface default. So turn that off, and let's do show IP protocols again. And for RIP, all the passive interfaces are now gone. You can see that here. But we do want to make this interface passive, because this is the interface that's going out to the service provider, internet service provider. We don't want this interface passing all the internal network information to the ISP. We do want to route, but we don't want it sharing information about the internal network for security reasons. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make that particular interface passive. So we have to set a specific interface. So we'll do passive. I think it's passive interface, and you just tell it the interface. So 1.1. I think that'll do it. Nope. And I made a mistake somewhere. Let's see, let's back up a step and then make sure I'm just router RIP, and then we need to set the passive interface, and then let me see what my options are. Oh yeah, that's what I did. Fast Ethernet, I have to designate that, and then that was 1.1. And now do show IP protocols. And we have RIP. All right, and then, okay, there we go. Passive interface, Fast Ethernet 1.1. So that's set up correctly. So that's done. That everything looks good there. Let's go to router 5. And let's go to show IP interface brief, because we want to look at the interfaces, make sure they're set up correctly, because we have some issues here. So on router 5, Fast Ethernet 0.0 should be 10.1.3.2, and it's 10.1.3.2. That's good, but it says it's administratively down. And Fast Ethernet 0.1 should be 10.0.3.2. 10.0.3.2 it is, but again, it's administratively down. We have the loopback set, so we need to bring up these two interfaces. So go to Comp T for global configuration mode, and then interface Fast Ethernet 0.0, and we're going to issue the no shut command, and then we're going to drop down and we're going to do interface Fast Ethernet 0.1 and issue the no shut command, and then do show IP interface brief, and now they look like they're both up, and you can see that in packet tracer. That's what the green triangle is. So we have 10.132 and 10.032, so everything looks good there. Let's check the routing protocol to see if it's on there, if RIP is on there. So do show IP protocols, and we have EIGRP, and here's RIP. It is version 2. Here are the 2 interfaces. It's for the correct networks, the 10 networks, and it's got 2 gateways. So 10.0.3.1, 10.0.3.1, it's got that one, and 10.1.3.1, it's got this one over here. So RIP is running. It looks like it's functioning correctly. So let's jump back to router 1, and let's see if we're getting the routing tables showing the routes, because they should be there by now. So we want to do a show IP route to check at the routing table. And if you scroll up a little bit and you look under codes, we're going to be looking for R for RIP, and we are seeing them now, which is good. So let's take a look. Router 1 is aware of the 10.0.0.0 network, the 10.0.1.0, the 10.0.2.0, and the 10.0.3.0, all because they're directly connected. So these are all directly connected. It's aware of those. So let's see if it knows this one, 10.1.0.0, 10.1.0.0, and that is via RIP, so that's right. Via 10.0.0.2, so its next hop should be 10.0.0.2, that's correct. It knows about the 10.1.1.0 network from RIP, and that's also going to be 10.0.0.2 is the next hop, which is right here. It knows about the 10.1.2.0 network from RIP, and that's via next hop 10.0.3.2, which is this one down here, 10.0.3.2. And it knows about the 10.1.3.0 network via 10.0.3.2 as well. This is the loopback. So that looks good. Router 1's got the information it needs to all the various networks. Let's do the same for router 2 and do show IP route. And let's check the configuration or the routing table on that. It is getting RIP updates. That's good. So router 2 is directly connected to 10.0.0.0. It's also directly connected to 10.1.0.0, which is here. So let's see if it knows about these networks that it's not directly connected to. So 10.0.1.0, 10.0.1.0, got it from RIP via the 10.0.0.1 next hop. That's correct. 10.0.2 network it got from RIP, and 10.0.3 network it got from RIP. So these are all there. It's directly connected to 10.1.0.0, so let's check out 10.1.1.0. 10.1.1.0, that's good. The next hop of 10.1.0.1, 10.1.0.1, that looks good. The 10.1.2 network and the 10.1.3 networks are also being provided via RIP, so that looks good on router 2. Let's head over to router 3. We're going to do the same. Do show IP route. Take a look at our routing table. So router 3 has RIP feeding it information about the 10.0.0.0 network, the 10.0.1.0 network, 10.0.2.0 network, and the 10.0.3 network, all provided by RIP. So router 3 knows about all of these. It's directly connected to 10.1.0.0, 10.1.0.0. It's directly connected to 10.1.1.0, which is here. Now let's check on 10.1.2.0 and 10.1.3.0. So here's 10.1.2.0, which is supplied via RIP, and 10.1.3.0, which is supplied by RIP. So it knows about all of those. It's not aware of this one yet, though. Let's see, and there's its loopback. So everything looks okay on router 3. Quick check of router 4. And do show IP route. So router 4 is showing the RIP, the 10.0.0.0, 10.0.10, which is here, 20, which is here, 30, which is there, all from RIP. It's also aware of the 10.1.0.0 network right here from RIP. It's directly connected to 10.1.20 and 10.1.30. 10.1.30. Okay, that looks good. And the loopback is there. It's also directly connected to the 203.0.113.0 network. I think everything looks okay there. Yeah, that looks all right. So let's go to router 4, or router 5, check it. And let's look at the show IP route. Let's look at the routing table. Oh, I have to issue the do command, do show IP route. The show commands are generally done in the privilege exec mode. So you just add do in front of the command. So router 5 is aware of 10.0.0.0 from RIP, 1.0 from RIP, 2.0 from RIP. It's directly connected to 10.0.3.0. Does it know about 10.1.0.0? Yes, from RIP. 10.1.1.0, yes, from RIP. 10.1.2.0, and it's directly connected to 10.1.3.0. All right. So everything there looks good too. So let's check connectivity. We'll start with PC1, and we're going to go to the desktop. We're going to get the command prompt, and we're going to see if PC1 can get over to PC3. So let's ping 10.1.2.10. See what our results are there. And we'll give that a second to work through. First request was probably an ARP, but look, we have connectivity, so that's good. We had a successful ping. Let's ping from PC2 to PC3. And we're gonna ping 10.1.2.10. All right, we're successful with that one. Let's go to PC3 now to make sure everything's routing back in the other direction. And we're going to ping PC1 at 10.0.1.10. That looks good, successful. And now we want to ping PC2, so 10.0.2.10, and that's successful. That should be it. It looks like we fixed all the problems. We had multiple issues, everything from improperly configured interfaces to RIP not being enabled. That was a fun little lab. That's the end of this video. In the next video, I'll work on the EIGRP troubleshooting section. Thanks, and I'll see you in that video.